The Jets look to make it 3 straight wins while the Pats aim to extend their win streak to 8 games. It's a short week, but we're ready. This is a Locked On Patriots Jets crossover.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's happening? I am your host of Locked On Patriots, Nick Cattles, along with the host of Locked On Jets, John Butchko, for the latest edition of our Locked On crossovers for the 2025 season. And of course, we are both part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network, kind of a big deal. Your team every day. And on today's crossover episode, we've got our keys to the game and what we think will actually happen tonight. Also, John and myself will break down the biggest matchups of this primetime divisional game. But first, let's talk top storylines. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. John Butchko, my guy, nice to work with you again for a second time. We did the AFC East preview way before the season kicked off. I think we were probably pretty close to where we would be, but the Patriots are obviously exceeding expectations. I think the Jets are pretty much right around where you thought they would be, but how's it going for you?
Despite that, it's been a surprise, Nick. And welcome to Locked On AFC
Thanks.
East crossovers. Like we thought we did that show in the summer, and we thought everyone picked the Jets to finish last. I think I actually picked the Jets to finish third ahead of Miami. But everybody knew that this was going to be a reset year for the Jets. It's a first-year coach. It's a first-year GM. They were cleaning out from an all-in plan the last 2 years that did not pan out. This was a team that was very limited in their cap space this offseason. There were pretty glaring holes on this team. So, if you told me the Jets would be 2-7 right now, I would have believed you. I'd be disappointed they maybe weren't at 3 or 4 wins, but it's not the biggest shock in the world to see the Jets have a losing record. What nobody saw was the Jets trading Sauce Gardner, because when we did that show, it was right after the Jets signed Sauce Gardner to a big contract extension. So, at that time, it felt like Sauce Gardner was going to be in green and white through his prime. Well, along comes the trade deadline. The Jets trade Sauce Gardner to Indianapolis for 2 first-round picks and trade Quinnen Williams to Dallas for a first-round pick and a second-round pick. So for the Jets right now, this is a team on a 2-game winning streak, but most of the focus is on what's to come, because this team's out of the playoff race. They're not going to finish the year with a winning record, but they have 8 picks in the top 2 rounds of the next 2 drafts. So, we have half a season to play, so we're going to keep talking about, and very exciting show today to preview Thursday Night Football. But for the Jets, most of the focus is on what's to come, because this is a team that's now very young. They've got a ton of first and second year guys who are going to play in this game, and they have a ton of draft picks coming in. So for the Jets, it's all about the future.
Well, of course, Patriots fans know all about that. Back-to-back seasons with 4 wins in 23 and 24. I would say, and this should not be a surprise for anybody listening or watching, Patriots far exceeding expectations. I had them winning 9 games for the season. They're already obviously at 8, so they are well ahead of expectations with Mike Vrabel and the hottest team in the NFL right now, coming off the win against Tampa. With that said, coming off last weekend, John, what's the biggest story this week in New York?
The biggest story is probably the play of Justin Fields. It's been a disappointment. The Jets did beat Cleveland, but it really was not because of the quarterback play. The Jets signed Justin Fields this offseason, hoping that he could channel his natural talent, because this is a guy with a lot of physical tools, and he's a guy that when he plays well, he plays at a really high level. He lit it up week 1 against Pittsburgh. The Jets scored 32 points. 3 weeks ago in Cincinnati, right before the Jets bye week, they got their first win. It was a game where Fields entered really struggling. He had a fantastic game. The Jets scored 39 points. The problem is most of the other games this year have been really bad. And one of the stories of Justin Fields' career is that while his good games are very good, his bad games are very bad. And, I think that, like one of the things I always talk about on Locked On Jets is your bad games have to be games where you still do something well. They have to be games where, you still lead the team on a couple of drives, where you're still able to put points on the board, where you're still able to fight through things. And for Fields, it feels like if anything goes wrong, the Jets just don't have a passing game that day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was watching the game against Cleveland, took a look at that this week to prepare for the game on Thursday night. And, I got a really good friend that's a Chicago Bears fan who lived through the Justin Fields experiment and experience. And, he liked Justin Fields. He did. But the up and down of it all can drive you crazy. And you're right, John. When you look at a young quarterback, and Justin Fields isn't really young anymore, right? He's been in the league for a number of years now. But when you look at a younger quarterback, you want to at least have a couple of, flashes, a couple of carrots left for you to kind of, chase after. And I think Patriots fans last year, you could look at the numbers and, Drake May, his turnover worthy plays and the turnovers he had, but he still had those flashes of like, okay, wait a minute. If he can get to that more often, he could be a high level quarterback. And obviously that's what he's been this year. And along with the team, Drake May has exceeded expectations for sure. I think that the biggest story for the Patriots heading into Thursday night is their run defense. The first, 9 weeks of the season, they were dominant. Nobody could do anything. James Cook could not get past 50 yards. Rico Dowdle could not get past 50 yards. They faced some good backs. Jaylen Warren could not get past 50 yards. They faced a number of good backs in the first 9 weeks, and they were the best run defense in all of football. Even though they beat Tampa, they had a little bit of leakage in the run defense. They gave up 100-plus yards. For the first time, a rusher had more than 50 yards. And so now I think the Patriots trying to figure out what were the issues. What was it? The linebacker fits? That could be part of the problem. The defensive line was pushed a little bit more than anticipated. That could be a problem. Christian Ellis was out last weekend, one of their starting linebackers with a hip issue. He's going to be out again on Thursday night with the same hip issue. I don't know if it's a coincidence that Christian Ellis was not out there and their run defense took a step back. We'll see. I thought Jack Gibbons, who replaced Christian Ellis, actually played pretty well. And, so now you're looking at it because, we'll dive into this more in a little bit. You do not want your run defense, as Joe Namath once said, struggling as you get ready to play the Jets. You do not want that to happen. So was last week, was that kind of a flash in the pan, no big deal, or was that the beginning of maybe some issues? So I think that's the biggest story. We'll get into a lot more here on this episode, this crossover episode, because it is a primetime divisional battle on a cold November New England night, and we've got some marquee matchups to look at next. This is a Locked On Patriots and Jets crossover episode, and we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. You need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. And their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like the priority shipping I just mentioned, lower prices, and that dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. You can use Prize Picks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs. It keeps every game exciting. The new Stacks feature, game changer. You can now pick more on Browns points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Thank you for making Locked On Patriots and Locked On Jets your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Yes, I mentioned that earlier. I mentioned it again, kind of a big deal. Your team every day. And don't forget, as you're watching Locked On Jets, Locked On Patriots, this crossover episode, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, give us a like. Don't forget to throw a comment in. Let us know who you think is going to win this game and why. And don't forget to subscribe to each channel. John Butchko with me here, Locked On Jets. Nick Cattles, Locked On Patriots. John, divisional games can be interesting. Thursday night football games can be especially unpredictable. But going into this game, I do think we have some matchups that people should be paying attention to. I'll let you lead off. What's one of the marquee matchups that you'll be looking at?
Nick, we touched on it in the first segment, and normally I will go like one-on-one player versus player, but I'm going to make an exception here because I think it's so critical. It's Breece Hall against the Patriots run defense, and you really hit the nail on the head where the Patriots through much of the season have had a run defense that's been close to dominant. The Jets passing game has really struggled. Aside from that standout game Justin Fields had 3 weeks ago in Cincinnati, the Jets have struggled to do anything moving the ball. And in that game against Cleveland, I don't know why the Jets barely used Breece Hall in the first 3 quarters of the game. Hall only got the ball on 6 of the first 27 plays. Jets took over on a possession near the end of the third quarter. From that point forward, Breece Hall got the ball on 16 of the following 20 plays. I think you got to find a little bit better balance there because it became pretty predictable at certain points. During that sequence, Hall took 2 9-yard losses, and then neither play was really his fault. It was one was kind of like a botched shotgun snap, and there were some guys who blew their assignments. But I think part of the reason they blew their assignments was it was so obvious he was getting the ball at that point. But Breece Hall has taken over these last 2 games. Jets have 2 wins this season. Both games, Breece Hall has played a huge role. He's put together dominant performances. And the way things are going for Justin Fields right now, he's not going to have Garrett Wilson in this game. Garrett Wilson suffered a knee injury against Cleveland. He's out 3 to 4 weeks. So Breece Hall's really the only above average skill player the Jets have right now. They're going to lean on him, and it's going to be in the run game. So I think it's going to be very important for Hall to, again, have a big game against the run defense that, despite a recent hiccup, has been pretty stingy for most of the year.
I'll take your Breece Hall point, John, and I will double down on that point. Breece Hall against specifically the Patriots linebackers, specifically Robert Spillane. As you said, the Jets, Breece Hall is really their only weapon with Garrett Wilson out of this game that would scare you. I think if Mike Vrabel walks into a room this week, the first name up at the top of the whiteboard offensively is Breece Hall. It's not Justin Fields. It's not Tyler Johnson. It's not anybody else but Breece Hall. And the thing about Breece Hall that makes him so dangerous, and Jets fans know this, and Patriots fans, some of them might know this, but he almost always makes the initial guy miss. He's got that wiggle. He's very elusive. And so one of the keys to this game for the Patriots, talking about this Breece Hall matchup, is you've got to limit his big runs. He's tied for the 3rd most 10-plus yard runs, which are known as explosives in the NFL. You get to 10 or more yards on the run game. He's got 21 of those types of runs this year. He's, again, tied for the 3rd most in the league. He is 6th in the NFL in rushing yards over expected with a plus 134. He is 14th in the NFL in yards after contact with 463. Oh, and by the way, if that's not enough, he ended up having a 42-yard house call on a screen pass last week against the Browns defense. So he is an explosive player, and he is enemy number 1 for the Patriots defense on Thursday night. If they can't stop Breece Hall, this game all of a sudden gets closer than a lot of people think it's going to be. John, your matchup number 2 in this game.
Well, yeah, I think Patriots fans should really like Breece Hall, though, because 2 years ago, these teams played a season finale in Foxborough on a snowy day, and the Jets won, and that's what got the Patriots in position to draft Drake May. So
that's right. That's right.
Should kind of be a hero in New England.
Thank you, Breece. Thank you, Breece.
And that was actually we Washington fans had a lot of tributes to Greg Zuerlein when the Jets cut him. Near the offseason because he made a kick that got the the Commanders Daniels. But I think my number 2 matchup is Jarvis Brownlee Jr. versus Stefon Diggs. I think that we're going to see a lot of this matchup, and that's because the Jets suffered an injury at the corner position. Zaire Thomas, who was their 3rd round pick this year, took over for Sauce Gardner as an outside corner. And he suffered a concussion last week against Cleveland. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. is a guy the Jets acquired in a trade this year from Tennessee. He plays mostly in the slot, but after Thomas went down, he went outside. So I just think you're going to get this matchup a lot, because I think Brownlee's going to play on the outside when the Patriots run 2 receiver sets. He'll play inside when the Patriots run 3 receiver sets. I know Diggs kind of splits his time. Brownlee's a guy he's been a big part of the Jets' run defense so far. He's an excellent tackler. He played very well in coverage his first couple of games with the Jets, going back to when he stepped into the starting lineup in London 4 weeks ago when the Jets lost to Denver. Had a few hiccups, though, last week against Cleveland. Got beaten coverage for a couple times, got lost on a couple of motions. I'm sure Josh McDaniel saw that and is figuring out ways to utilize his receivers to kind of trip Brownlee up a little bit. And Brownlee's also a guy, going back to his Tennessee days, who has a history of getting a little grabby. He committed a couple penalties last week. And Diggs is having a great year with the Patriots. I think he's a big part of the reason the Patriots are having such a surprising season. This is a matchup the Jets are going to need to at least hold their own in. I mean, I don't know if Brownlee can outright win it, but I think they need to hold Diggs in check. I think if Diggs has a big game, it's going to be very difficult for the Jets to be in position to pull off an upset.
John Butchko, you're killing me, because 2 out of my 3 marquee matchups. My number 1 marquee matchup was the linebackers against Breece Hall. My 3rd marquee matchup, which I'll just talk about right now, was the slot receivers and receivers for the Patriots against Jarvis Brownlee, because I obviously watched the Cleveland Browns game, as I said a little bit earlier, and my goodness, he was bad. He was very bad. And if I'm Josh McDaniels and I'm watching that tape, I'm saying to myself, I've got to attack that guy. I've got to go after him. And so I think, it'll be interesting to see if the Jets play as much man coverage as they usually play, given the injury situation. But I think that the Patriots, McDaniels will sprinkle guys in to different spots at receiver. He'll play some guys outside, then slide them inside. He likes to move around the receivers at the line of scrimmage. So, Diggs will be primarily in slot, but, he might mess around a little bit and get on the outside. Pop Douglas, I think, is another one that Jarvis Brownlee will probably have a very difficult time because of Pop Douglas's quickness in short spaces. I just feel like that'll be a tough cover. And then you've got Kyle Williams, who, had that big touchdown last week. He's another guy that you can kind of move around, but he's mostly been on the outside. So I agree with your Travis Brownlee point. I think the Patriots will absolutely attack Jarvis Brownlee on Thursday night. I'm going to jump in front of you, and I'm going to give you my 3rd marquee matchup, which was really my 2nd one, so you can't steal it from me. Will Campbell versus Will McDonald, the battle of the wills. If Will McDonald plays, which sounds like he's probably going to, right? He's been limited after missing Monday's practice, but it sounds like he's going to go. And the exact opposite of Jarvis Brownlee when I'm watching that Browns-Jets film. Will McDonald was dominant. He was unbelievable in that football game. Christy Yamaguchi, like spin moves constantly, can drive tackles crazy. He is a very difficult matchup. And Will Campbell, of course, he's had some ups and downs. Last week, I thought he had a rough game, especially in the second half against Tampa. And the other thing about Will McDonald is it doesn't happen a ton, but the Jets, I noticed, will actually move him to the inside every once in a while. So that will also open up the eyes of, Garrett Bradbury, Garrett Wilson, Micah Wenu, the inside, the interior of the Patriots offensive line. But the Patriots, John, they cannot let Will McDonald dominate this game because much like Breece Hall, if Will McDonald's living in that backfield, you're going to have some issues if you're Drake May. So Will Campbell versus Will McDonald. I'm sure Will Campbell will have plenty of help through this game to deal with Will McDonald, but that's a big matchup.
Nick, it's a good thing you jumped in front of me. I'm not making this up. That was my 3rd match. I actually have in my notes Battle of the Wills, which is the phrase you use. So great minds think alike. What can I say? I think I'll defer to you on that one. I think you stated it perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching it, and against Cleveland, I mean, man, oh man, did he have a day. And, I think Dylan Gabriel didn't help them at all. But he was tremendous. And if that happens on Thursday night, then the Patriots, again, the game could be a little bit closer than you might think. All right, we got a couple of keys and a prediction. I usually have a rule that I don't make a prediction on the crossover show, but since the game's on Thursday night, we're going to give you a prediction as well. So we'll have a couple of keys, a prediction next as we continue with today's crossover episode of Locked On Patriots and Locked On Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. As the days get shorter and the nights come earlier, it can start to feel a little heavier, especially when life is already packed with work, family, and everything else. This season, it's so important to reach out and check in with friends, family, or even yourself. Just like checking on a teammate or reconnecting with someone you haven't seen in a while can lift your spirits. Reaching out for therapy can make a real difference too. BetterHelp makes that first step easier by connecting you with a licensed therapist online from wherever you are. Therapy isn't just for when things are falling apart. It's about staying balanced and growing through the tough seasons. And over 5 million people have used BetterHelp. And with 30,000 therapists available, finding support really is just a few clicks away. This month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it simple to take that first step. Listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon, because taking that step towards support might just leave you wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? He's John Butchko, Locked On Jets. I am Nick Cattles, Locked On Patriots. Final segment of this crossover episode, as we have just copied each other throughout this thing without knowing we were going to. Getting ready for Thursday night football between the Jets and the Patriots, a division battle. Give you a couple keys, and then we'll get into our prediction. John Butchko, the floor is yours. What is your first key?
My first key for the Jets, and I hate to use such generic analysis like this because this is the type of thing you'd hear from like any TV analyst, but the Jets need to play mistake-free football. I think everybody knows the Patriots are the better team. And what the Jets cannot do is hand the Patriots gifts. One of the reasons the Jets are 2-7 this year is they frequently played sloppy football. You know, when you talk about missed tackles, you talk about missing opportunities to force turnovers, you talk about penalties that did not need to be committed in key spots that help extend the drives. The Jets just can't play sloppy football. If the Jets want to win this game, you can't give the Patriots extra chances. This is a really tough opponent. Patriots are, one of the best teams in the conference this year. They're playing at a really high level right now, and they're more talented. And I think any path to a Jets upset begins with the Jets playing their best football. If both these teams play their A games, New England's going to win. So the Jets need to hope that the Patriots, play their maybe B or C game. The Jets have to play their A game, though. If the Jets don't play their A game, they can't win. So that starts with just taking care of the things you can take care of. Don't make any errors that are not forced.
And look, the Patriots, they've had their games where they've had turnovers. Drake May had a bad turnover against Tampa last weekend in the end zone, one that he certainly wants back. Patriots had 5 turnovers against the Steelers in their loss against Pittsburgh. So, every once in a while they can cough the football up, and you're dealing with a short week, physically and mentally, a stressful week, I'm sure. So I would not totally write off the idea of the Patriots maybe making a couple mistakes and turning the ball over, and then you have a different kind of game. I'm interested, John, to see if the Patriots play even more man coverage than they usually do. I'm looking at the Jets and I'm saying without Garrett Wilson, as we mentioned earlier, not many weapons offensively. Do you load up against the run? I know Cleveland played a decent amount of one high safety, obviously trying to slow down Breece Hall as best as they could. Will the Patriots load up on the run? They haven't done a ton of stacking the box against opponents. They've banked on their defensive line and their linebackers to keep the run game in check. As we mentioned earlier, the first 9 weeks, that worked out swimmingly. And then last week, not so great. So I wonder if they tweak it a little bit and say, hey, look, no Garrett Wilson. We're going to go play man coverage. We're going to shut down their receivers. We're going to load up against the run. And we want to create those tight windows for Justin Fields, because along with some of the things that Justin does, he loves running the football. He loves tucking and running and putting his eyes down and not necessarily looking downfield. He's also been victim of kind of stretches, maybe even sometimes long stretches of inaccuracy. So force those tight windows on Justin Fields. So I'm just interested to see the defensive approach from Mike Vrabel's team on Thursday night. What's a second key for you, John?
Okay, along the lines of what you said, but not this time, not a complete copy.
Okay.
Throw the ball to Breece Hall more often because of what you mentioned, because it's going to be tough for this receiver group to make plays. It's not a group with a ton of talent. I think we may see Adonai Mitchell, who was part of the Sauce Gardner trade, take the field for the first time for the Jets, especially with Wilson out. John Mechie, who the Jets just got from Philadelphia, a young guy who's had a really rough start to his career, all the adversity he's had to go through. The Jets are going to give him a chance. I mean, it's kind of a revamped wide receiver room, but it's not a group with a lot of talent. Breece Hall is a dynamic runner. He's a guy who can make big plays as a rusher, but he also can make big plays as a receiver. The Jets have been ignoring him too frequently. When the Jets lost in London 4 weeks ago, Justin Fields had a horrible game. In fact, the Jets actually had negative net passing yards for that game. When you factor in the yardage lost from the 9 sacks they had, they did not target Breece Hall once. You'd think in a game where your quarterback's really struggling, you'd get the ball to a running back who could make plays in the passing game. They didn't do it. Last week against Cleveland, Breece Hall only had one target. It was a screen that he took for a 42-yard touchdown. The only time they threw him the ball, might want to throw him the ball again. So I think throwing the ball to Breece Hall has to be a big part of this game. And that's, that I think part of that has to be by design. I think, when the Jets are in their scripted plays, they should cook up a couple of screens to Breece Hall to see if they can get him loose. And, the other aspect of this is that if you give those easy completions to Justin Fields, I mean, there's no guarantees Fields has been struggling, but maybe that's the sort of thing that gets him more comfortable, that, gets him into a little bit of a rhythm that builds his confidence up, and maybe you can kind of get him going in that way. So I think it's really important for the Jets to get Breece Hall involved in the passing game.
It's a really smart point, and the Patriots have at times struggled with their linebackers in coverage, struggled against running backs at times, struggled against tight ends. So I think it's a really good point by you. I would say, and this might sound a little bit ridiculous or fringe, but I don't think it is given this matchup. The Patriots cannot give the Jets free yards or points due to special teams. Obviously, the Jets had not one but 2 returns last weekend against Cleveland for touchdowns, 1 punt, 1 kickoff. And that's not an anomaly. The Jets are great on special teams, and Mike Vrabel pointed it out to the media when he met with them this week. Evan Lazar, my friend from Patriots.com, wrote about some of the special team stuff that the Jets have shown this year. They're number 1, if you believe in DVOA, which a lot of people do, and I put a lot of credence in. The Jets have the best special teams in the NFL in DVOA. They're number 1 in kickoffs. They're 5th best in punt returns. So, in a game like this where everything matters for the Jets, and when your offense isn't consistent, the way you can help your offense is to shorten fields or maybe steal some points with the return game. And for the Patriots, Jeremy Springer, special teams coordinator, big week for him. You want to force the Jets into long drives. You want to, open the door to Justin Fields to prove that he can consistently move the ball 50, 60, 70 yards to put points on the board. So I think special teams is crucial. All right. We've said a lot about this game, but we have not given our prediction. John Butchko, you can lead. What are your thoughts? I hate Thursday night football games to predict because, as I said at the beginning of this, they're very unpredictable. Sometimes teams just don't show up. It's a divisional matchup. It's a short week. What's your prediction, John?
One thing we've learned through the years is that anything can happen, particularly, as you mentioned, on Thursday night football, particularly in a divisional game. But I really have a tough time seeing the Jets win this game. This game feels to me like the reverse of when these teams played Thursday night last year in week 3, when the Patriots were clearly, a team that was in a reset mode. It was actually the high point of the Aaron Rodgers era with the Jets, which says a lot about the Aaron Rodgers era. The high point was a week 3 win over the Gerard Mayo to go 2-1. But it was a game the Jets completely dominated, where the Patriots really had trouble moving the ball offensively. I think Jacoby Brissett started that game. I think the Jets, I think it's just the reverse. I think this is a bad Jets team. They're kind of like on stage 1 of their resets. They don't really have many weapons on offense beyond Breece Hall. They're pretty one-dimensional on offense. So, I mean, to me, this feels like the kind of game. I think it's going to be like a 24-10 kind of game where the Patriots win it comfortably. I mean, with the caveats, like nothing would surprise me in a game, a Thursday night game where these two teams get together. But I think looking at this objectively, the most likely scenario is a pretty comfortable New England win.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if this game is closer than people think, at least through the first three quarters for sure. It's like a 13-point spread, which is, to me, too many points when you're talking about Thursday night. The Patriots have not had a bye yet, so I'm wondering if they're starting to show some of that physical wear and tear. Kayshon Boutte, Ramondre Stevenson, Christian Ellis, those guys will be out. Terrell Jennings, their backup running back, might also be out. So I think they're starting to feel it a little bit. So a team that has not had a bye on a short week, playing a physical game against Tampa last weekend. Again, it's a divisional matchup. Thursday nights are funky. So I think it could be closer than people think, but I tend to kind of think along the same lines as you. I've got the Patriots 23. I've got the Jets 13, kind of like a 10-point game feel to me. But as you mentioned, John, anything can happen. If the special teams blows up for the Jets and then all of a sudden, some Thursday night funkiness and clunkiness happens, I would not completely write it off, but I've got Pats 23, Jets 13. All right, that wraps up this crossover edition of Locked On Patriots and Locked On Jets. Thank you for making us your first listen and for being an everydayer. Don't forget to throw a comment in on the YouTube channel. Hit that like button and subscribe. And for your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast with Tyler the Madman Rowland and Tony Wiggins. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a fantastic day. Enjoy the football, and we will see you next time.